began pushing and pushing and pushing.
One battle he pushed, and eventually won, was against the notorious Reverend Marcial Maciel de Gollado, a powerful Mexican priest and protege of John Paul, who was accused of molesting young seminarians. The case had lain dormant for years, but in 2004, Ratzinger reopened the case and eventually removed Maciel from priestly duties. As Pope, he would take control of Maciel's powerful religious order, the Legionaries of Christ.
I think the bottom line is this. However bad you think the Vatican's response to this crisis has been, it would have been infinitely worse were it not for the personal leadership of Pope Benedict XVI.
Once Ratzinger became Pope Benedict, there were more unprecedented acts. Meetings with victims of abuse, public apologies, and finally, an acknowledgement that the crisis did not come from enemies of the Church on the outside, but was, quote, born from the sin within the Church.
Is it possible that Cardinal Ratzinger could have been more flexible back then, perhaps more creative, which would have alleviated a lot of the horrors that these victims have gone through for many years?
Cardinal Ratzinger was creative when he expressed his frustration with the canon law and ultimately went to John Paul II and asked for special faculties or permissions.
So, I mean, is it fair to say that Cardinal Ratzinger was frustrated that he couldn't do more for these victims in getting rid of these bad priests?
I think that we have it on record that he was frustrated, yes. Yes.
While the Pope has evolved and taken some strong measures to deal with the crisis, there is unfinished business that still haunts the victims of pedophile priests. And that is, what about the bishops? The bishops who covered up priestly abuse and moved those priests from parish to parish.
We've been crying and crying and crying to do something about the bishops who have covered up, who have lied about this, who have wasted hundreds of millions of dollars of the faithful's money to stonewall it, through the courts. They've done nothing about these bishops.
Bishops like Cardinal Bernard Law of Boston, who covered up the crimes of priests who assaulted dozens of children. He eventually was forced to resign, only to end up as a cardinal in Rome.
He has this grand title, great apartment, and real power, real authority in the Vatican, and yet he is one of the most notorious bishops from this whole era of scandal.
Gibson believes the Pope will never publicly rebuke the bishops.
He doesn't want to open up that can of worms because he doesn't want to cause difficulties for his brother bishops. The bishops of the Church are his colleagues. That is his circle.
And there is more unfinished business. Even now, it's hard to believe, but there are priests accused of abuse hiding in plain sight in the Church. In this town in southern India lives a priest wanted by a U.S. prosecutor. CNN's Liz Nislos tracked him down. Joseph Jayapal has been accused of molesting 2 girls when he was a priest in Minnesota. He fled the country, ending up here in the Diocese of Uttarakhand. Jayapal's U.S. bishop has written the Pope's old agency, the CDF, repeatedly about the abuse, even saying a U.S. county attorney wants to extradite him. Yet to this day, 6 years after he was first accused, Father Jayapal is still a priest. He maintains he's innocent.
No, it is a lie. It is totally a lie.
And says the victims are out for cash.
I think there may be a motive to get money from the diocese.
Officials in the local diocese say Jayapal has been suspended, but he remains free until he's extradited, which U.S. authorities say could take years.
These guys can go from one country to another country, and there's no universal database that says, beep, 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 this guy has a record, this guy is a problem.
Jayapal is only one of several accused priests still sheltered by the Church. Remember Peter Hullermann, the German pedophile priest overseen by Cardinal Ratzinger in Munich? 14 years after his conviction, he was still a priest in the town of Bad Tolz in Germany, until the Church finally suspended him last spring. To date, Pope Benedict has never personally addressed his role in the Hullermann case, or why Hullerman remained a priest for so long.
The Hullerman case is a disgrace from the beginning to the end. But as long as the impression is that on the Hullerman case, the message is stonewalling and denial, I think it's going to be much more difficult for the Pope or his apologists to convince the rest of the world that he's on the side of the angels on the sex abuse issue.
To Vatican insiders, Pope Benedict may stand as a reformer, the church official who did more than anyone to address the crisis. But to many victims, ordinary Catholics, and the public at large, it's not nearly enough. The unfinished business of the sexual abuse scandal not only weakens the Pope's credibility, but it may cause the very thing he devoted his life to preventing: Catholics straying from the faith.
If the church leaders are seen to have no credibility, people aren't going to listen to them. They're going to wind up doing what Cardinal Ratzinger feared most. They're just going to go their own way, believe what they want to believe. In the end, that could be the worst scenario ever. That's the nightmare for Joseph Ratzinger. And to a degree, because of his track record, that could come true.